Have you ever given your whole life to someone you love, only to be pushed aside when you thought you mattered most? I'm not talking about small sacrifices. I mean emptying your savings, ignoring your own needs, and carrying someone else's dreams on your shoulders, only to be told, when the moment finally comes, that you don't belong. That's the pain I carry, and that's why I'm sharing my story with you today. My name is Eleanor. I am in my 60s, a widow, and a mother who once believed that love and sacrifice were enough to keep a family together. When my husband, Robert, passed away 5 years ago, the silence in my house grew heavier than any weight I had ever carried. Nights were the hardest. I'd sit at the kitchen table with just one plate in front of me, staring at the chair where he used to sit. My daughter, Amelia, was my only reason to keep going. Every laugh, every visit, every call, it was the spark that kept me alive. She was my pride. A smart young woman, beautiful, full of ambition. When she met Liam, her fiancé, I was happy for her. He seemed like a man with a bright future, someone who would love and protect her. I thought to myself, finally, my Amelia has found the happiness she deserves. When the wedding planning began, I threw myself into it with everything I had, not just because she was my daughter, but because it gave me purpose. I picked flowers, tasted cakes, negotiated with vendors, and went to fittings. Every detail mattered because I wanted her day to be flawless. I poured not only my energy but also my finances into it. I won't lie, I spent money I didn't really have. I borrowed, I used credit, I even dipped into Robert's life insurance fund. Some might call it foolish. But when you're a mother, you don't count the cost. You just give. Because that's what love demands. The wedding day itself was dazzling. My Amelia walked down the aisle in her white gown, and I remember thinking she looked like an angel. My chest swelled with pride, and I whispered to myself, Robert, I wish you could see her now. Tears filled my eyes as I realized I had made it possible. All the long nights of worrying about bills, all the sacrifices, it all felt worth it, at least in that moment. But life has a cruel way of showing you how fragile joy can be. For years, Amelia and I had talked about Santorini. We dreamed of those white houses on the cliffs, the blue waters, the sunsets. It was supposed to be our trip, our promise that even as she built her own life, she and I would always have our bond. When she got engaged, she laughed and said, Mom, maybe we'll make it a pre-honeymoon trip, just the two of us before I become a wife. Those words filled me with hope. I felt included, needed, loved. But as the plans shifted, suddenly it wasn't just our trip anymore. It became her honeymoon destination with Liam. She still promised I'd be there, as if I were part of their celebration. I told myself it's unusual, yes, but at least I'll be with her. I'll give them space, and I'll finally see the place we always dreamed of. That was the story I carried in my heart all through the wedding, until the end of the night. The band was playing, the guests were laughing, and I hugged my daughter one last time before she left for the hotel. My voice trembled as I whispered, I'll see you at the airport, honey. 8 o'clock, right? But her smile faltered. She glanced at Liam, who stood behind her with his hand pressed firmly on her back, and then she looked back at me. The words that left her lips pierced me deeper than any knife. You won't be coming on our honeymoon. My husband wants privacy. Her voice was flat, rehearsed, like she had been told what to say. My Amelia, the girl I had raised, the child who was once my whole world, looked at me as if I no longer mattered. And Liam, oh, I caught the smirk on his face. He didn't have to say a word. His eyes told me he was the one who wanted me gone. I froze. The music around me turned into noise. Laughter became distant, and I felt heat rushing to my face. A single tear escaped my eye, but I couldn't even bring myself to argue. I just stood there, my heart shattering in silence, while my daughter walked away without so much as a backward glance. That was the moment my world cracked. But before I continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you're watching from. I want to know how far my voice reaches. For years, Amelia and I would sit at the kitchen table with travel magazines spread between us. Our eyes always landed on one place, Santorini. We'd trace our fingers along photos of blue waters and white homes perched on cliffs, whispering promises to each other. One day, Mom, we'll go there together. Just you and me. After Robert's passing, those little daydreams became more than casual talk. They were a lifeline. I told myself if I can just hold on until Amelia is settled, we'll take that trip, and it will remind me that life still has beauty. She knew what it meant to me. It wasn't just a vacation. It was healing, a chance to feel alive again. So when she announced her engagement, I reminded her of our promise. At first, she was delighted. She even said we could take the trip before her wedding as a mother-daughter celebration. My heart soared. I thought, this is it. Finally, our moment. But the idea shifted. Suddenly, it wasn't two women honoring their bond. It became her honeymoon destination. And somehow, I was told I'd still be included. Strange as it sounded, I clung to that hope. I ignored the warning voice inside me, the one whispering that I might become an intruder. I convinced myself, she loves me. She wouldn't promise something this important if she didn't mean it. When people around me questioned the arrangement, I brushed them off. It's fine. I'll give them space. I'll stay out of their way. I just want to be there. Truth was, I longed to feel part of her new life. I wanted proof that even though she was building a home with Liam, she hadn't left me behind. The truth is, Amelia's wedding was not something I could easily afford. After Robert's passing, I was left with the house and a modest pension, but that only covered the basics. Still, when Amelia started talking about tulips from Holland, a ballroom reception, and a gown that made her glow, I didn't think twice. I wanted her day to feel magical. I dipped into every corner of my finances. My credit cards stretched further than they should have. I took out a small loan, telling myself it was temporary. Even the life insurance Robert left me, which I swore I would never touch, ended up funding pieces of the celebration. Each time I signed a check, I whispered in my heart, it's worth it. This is for Amelia. Some nights, I'd sit at my desk staring at numbers that didn't add up, but then I'd picture her walking down the aisle, smiling with joy, and I pushed the fear aside. What mother doesn't dream of seeing her child's happiness, even if it means carrying the weight alone? The trip to Santorini became part of that burden. Flights, hotels, even the little extras. I covered most of it. Amelia promised me Liam was fine with me joining, that he said it was affordable. Still, I knew in my bones it was my sacrifices that made it possible. I wasn't buying luxury for myself. I was buying moments, memories, something I thought we'd both cherish. Deep down, I hoped she'd look back one day and say, my mom gave me everything she could. That thought kept me going when bills piled on the counter. I told myself once the wedding and honeymoon were behind us, I'd find a way to rebuild. Love was worth more than money, wasn't it? I never once imagined that the very trip I dreamed of would become the stage for my deepest humiliation. The wedding night should have been the happiest evening of my life as a mother. The chandeliers sparkled, music filled the ballroom, and Amelia danced like she had no care in the world. Guests clinked glasses, laughter echoed, and I stood back, watching my daughter step into the life I believed she deserved. But beneath the cheer, I noticed something that gnawed at me. Liam's hand never left Amelia's back. At first, I thought it was tenderness, but the longer I watched, the clearer it became. It wasn't affection, it was control. Every move she made, every conversation she tried to have, his hand was there, guiding, pressing, claiming. Still, I ignored my discomfort. Don't be dramatic, Eleanor, I told myself. This is her wedding day. Let her have it. Toward the end of the night, when the couple was preparing to leave, I hugged Amelia tightly. My voice was soft, full of pride and exhaustion. It was perfect, honey. I'll see you at the airport tomorrow, right? 8 o'clock. Her smile faltered for just a second. Then she looked back at Liam. He stood there with that unreadable expression, one corner of his mouth curling as though he already knew what was about to be said. Amelia's voice came out rehearsed, flat, almost lifeless. You won't be coming on our honeymoon. My husband wants privacy. The words shattered me. I felt the blood rush to my cheeks, my throat tighten. I searched her eyes for even a flicker of warmth, of apology, but she gave me nothing. Liam's smirk told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't her choice. He wanted me gone, and she obeyed. Guests kept laughing, the band kept playing, but I felt invisible. Like I had been erased in the middle of the celebration I had nearly bankrupted myself to create. I stood frozen, a tear sliding down my cheek as they walked away. She didn't look back. Not once. The house was silent when I came home that night. I sat in the same chair where Robert used to drink his morning coffee, my wedding clothes still clinging to me, and stared into the darkness. My phone was in my hand, but I couldn't bring myself to call Amelia. Not yet. My heart ached too much. By the next morning, I couldn't wait any longer. I dialed her number. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Nothing. All day I called, leaving message after message, each one weaker than the last. Amelia, honey. It's Mom. Please call me. I don't understand. Hours turned into days. I called until my throat burned from pleading into the phone. I texted, though my hands trembled so badly the words came out crooked. Still, no reply. My daughter, the same girl who once ran into my arms after school, who used to sit on the couch beside me and tell me every detail of her life, was gone. I called Liam once, just once. His phone went straight to voicemail too. Deep down, I knew he had everything to do with the silence. That man didn't just take her away physically. He built a wall between us, brick by brick, and she let him. I wandered the rooms of my house like a ghost. Everywhere I turned, I saw Amelia. Her high school graduation photo on the mantel. The painting she made in 3rd grade. The quilt she begged me to finish for her dorm room. Each reminder cut me deeper, because all of it had been built on the belief that our bond was forever. But forever felt broken. Nights stretched long, and the silence grew louder than ever. I started asking myself questions no mother should ever have to ask. Was I too needy? Did I push too hard to stay part of her life? Did she ever truly want me on that trip, or was it all in my imagination? My stomach turned at the thought that maybe, just maybe, my sacrifices had meant more to me than they ever did to her. Before I continue, I want to ask you, have you ever been excluded by someone you love deeply? Do you know someone who pushed family aside for their partner? Share with me in the comments, because I know this pain is not mine alone. I thought I had seen the last of Amelia's wedding guests when I left that ballroom in tears, but one man's words clung to me long after the music faded. His name was David. He was one of Liam's groomsmen, quiet, tall, the kind of man you barely notice in a crowd. Earlier that evening, he had pulled me aside as I poured myself a glass of iced tea. His voice was low, his eyes strangely unreadable. "Congratulations, Eleanor," he said. "Liam's a lucky man." I forced a smile, still caught in the glow of the wedding. "Thank you, David. Amelia is lucky too." He paused, studying me. Then he added something that made my stomach tighten. "He's focused. He gets what he wants. Just be careful." At the time, I brushed it off. Weddings are emotional, and people sometimes say odd things. I told myself he was awkward with words. But the tone in his voice, the way his eyes seemed heavy with something unspoken, it lodged itself in my memory. In the days that followed, as I sat alone in my house calling Amelia over and over again, his words replayed in my head. "Be careful." Careful of what? Careful of whom? I tried to convince myself it was nothing. But deep down, I couldn't shake the chill that ran through me when I thought of his warning. Several days later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. My heart leapt, thinking it was Amelia. But it wasn't. "Eleanor, this is David. We need to talk. It's important." For a moment, I nearly deleted the message. What business did one of Liam's groomsmen have with me? Still, curiosity and desperation won. I agreed to meet him at a small cafe in town. When I arrived, David was already seated, shoulders hunched, staring into a cup of coffee as though it held secrets. He rose when he saw me, gestured for me to sit. "I know this is strange," he began. His voice was low, urgent. But I couldn't just stay quiet. "I've known Liam since college, and I've seen what he's capable of. You need to hear this." I folded my arms, my heart pounding. "Capable of what? You're not making sense." David glanced around the cafe before leaning in. "Liam is not who he says he is. He's not a financial analyst. He changed his name years ago after racking up debts from gambling. He was in so deep he had to disappear. He reinvented himself, pretending to be someone respectable. Everything you think you know about him, his career, his background, it's all false. His words struck me like cold water. I shook my head. No, Amelia would have known. He couldn't keep something like that from her. He's a master manipulator, David said firmly. Charming on the outside, calculating underneath. He knew how to win her over, how to make her trust him. He saw her as a way back into comfort. With you, well, he thought you had resources he could use. If not wealth, then property, stability. And he needs to eliminate anyone who could stand in his way. That's why he wanted you out. The air around me seemed to thicken. My stomach churned. Could it be true? Was my daughter married to a fraud? David slid a folded piece of paper across the table. Here. An address. Go there if you want proof. But be careful. He won't let go easily. I left the cafe with the paper clutched in my hand, my mind spinning. An address scrawled in shaky ink. Bend, Oregon. Why there? What could possibly be waiting for me 2 hours away? I wanted to throw it in the trash and forget everything David had said. Part of me clung to denial. Liam couldn't be that dangerous. Amelia would never marry someone like that. He must be exaggerating. But another part of me, the part that had heard Liam's smug silence at the wedding, knew the truth. Something wasn't right. For a whole night I paced the house, torn between fear and the need for answers. Finally, as the rain hammered against the windows, I decided I couldn't ignore it any longer. I grabbed my keys and set out. The drive was long and merciless. Sheets of rain blurred the road. My old sedan groaned as the wipers struggled to keep pace. My hands tightened on the wheel until my knuckles ached. Every mile seemed heavier than the last. My thoughts swirled with images of Amelia, smiling one moment, cold the next. I kept asking myself, had I lost her completely, or was there still time to save her? By the time I pulled up to the address, night had fallen. It wasn't a home at all. It was a rundown storage facility on the edge of town. The air was damp, the lights flickered, and an uneasy feeling settled over me. I forced myself to step out. The manager, a tired-looking man locking up for the night, squinted at me. Looking for someone? I showed him the address. His jaw tightened. He was here. Said he wouldn't be back. Packed up and left in a hurry. My heart sank. Had I driven all this way for nothing? Then I heard it, a faint whimper, like a dog crying. It came from one of the units. My curiosity overpowered my fear. I tugged the latch. To my surprise, the door creaked open. What I saw inside nearly made my knees buckle. The storage unit smelled of dust and damp air. Against the wall sat a small cage with a trembling dog, but it wasn't the animal that stopped me cold. In the corner, stacked neatly in boxes, were files, dozens of them. I knelt down, my hands trembling as I opened the top box. What I saw nearly made me drop to the floor. There were bank statements, deeds, and identification documents, all in my name. My mortgage papers, my credit details, even copies of Robert's life insurance. My breath caught in my chest. Liam hadn't just stolen Amelia's trust, he had stolen my identity. He had been preparing to strip me of everything I owned, even the house that carried Robert's memory. For a moment, the room spun. My heart thudded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I thought of Amelia, still on her honeymoon, blissfully unaware that the man she had trusted was using her mother's life as a pawn. My fear for her grew sharper than ever. I snapped the box shut, grabbed my phone, and staggered outside. At a nearby gas station, I called the police. My voice shook as I explained what I'd found. They told me to come in and file a report, but their calm words felt miles away from the storm inside me. I knew then that this wasn't just a son-in-law I disliked. This was a predator, and he had marked me as his prey. The drive home felt endless. The rain had eased, but my heart remained heavy. I whispered into the silence, Robert, I don't know how to protect her. Guide me. By the time I pulled into my driveway, one thought echoed louder than all the rest. I had to warn Amelia. I had to save her before it was too late. But let me ask you, have you ever trusted someone, only to find out later they were not who they claimed to be? If so, tell me in the comments. I want to hear your stories. And if you're still with me, don't forget to press like. It helps more people hear stories like mine. so no one feels alone in their struggles. It was close to midnight when I pulled into my driveway after the long, draining trip from Bend. My body ached from the hours of driving through storms, and my mind still reeled from what I had uncovered in that storage unit. I wanted nothing more than to collapse into bed, but the moment I saw my porch, I stopped dead in my tracks. A figure sat hunched on the swing, her shoulders shaking, her face hidden in her hands. At first, I thought my tired eyes were deceiving me. But then she looked up, and my heart nearly burst. It was Amelia. Her hair was messy, her makeup smeared, her eyes swollen from crying. The second she recognized me, she let out a cry that sounded like it carried every ounce of heartbreak in her chest. "Mom," she sobbed, stumbling into my arms. I held her tightly, my own tears spilling as I rocked her the way I used to when she was small. "You're home, baby. You're safe," I whispered, though I didn't yet know what had driven her to this broken state. I guided her inside, sat her on the couch, and tried to calm her shaking hands. It took a while before she could speak clearly. But when she did, her words pierced me deeper than any insult Liam had ever thrown. "He left me, Mom. He abandoned me in Santorini." Her voice cracked. "He used your credit cards for everything. He told me it was fine, that you want us to be comfortable. And then one morning I woke up and he was gone. No explanation. Just a note on the pillow." I felt the blood drain from my face. "What did the note say?" She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "That he never loved me. That our marriage was only a way for him to get what he wanted. That he had found something better. He even wrote that you fell for his tricks as easily as I did." She broke into sobs again. I wrapped my arms around her, holding her trembling body. My heart shattered for her, but underneath the sorrow, something else was rising in me: rage. Amelia's story spilled out in fragments. The first 2 days in Santorini had been blissful. Liam played the part of the doting husband. They strolled the cobblestone streets, ate in seaside cafes, watched sunsets from their balcony. She thought she was living a dream, but little cracks began to show. He insisted on paying for everything with my cards, brushing off her concerns. "It's for our future," he told her. "Your mother wants us to enjoy ourselves." He turned every protest into guilt until Amelia felt foolish for even questioning him. On the third morning, she woke to an empty bed. His clothes were gone, his wallet gone, her passport missing. Only that cruel note remained. He hadn't just stolen her trust, he had stolen her ability to leave the island. She was stranded, penniless, and humiliated. "I had to beg for help at the U.S. Embassy," she confessed, her voice low. "They gave me a temporary passport, but I had no money for a ticket. A kind American family I met there loaned me enough to get home. I was too ashamed to call you. I didn't want anyone to know." Her shame cut me deeper than any financial loss. My little girl, sitting on a cold embassy chair in a foreign country, thinking she had no one to turn to. I cupped her face in my hands. "You never need to be ashamed with me. Never. You'll always have me." But Amelia's trembling didn't stop there. "Mom," she whispered, "the note also said he wasn't finished. He said he'd come back soon, that he still needed something from us." I stiffened. "Something? What did he mean?" Her eyes widened with dread. "I don't know. But he mentioned your house. He said you'd have to sign papers when he returned." That was the moment my sorrow turned into steel. I thought back to the boxes in the storage unit, filled with documents in my name. It all made sense. The wedding, the manipulation, the humiliation. None of it had been about Amelia. It had always been about me. My identity. My home. The last piece of security I had left in this world. I looked at my daughter, broken and ashamed, and I felt a fire ignite in my chest. I had let Liam humiliate me once. I had let him devastate Amelia. But if he thought he could take the only roof we had over our heads, he was about to meet a version of me he'd never imagined. The old Eleanor, the quiet widow who lived in her memories, was gone. In her place was a mother with nothing left to lose, a woman determined to protect her child, her home, and her dignity. I took Amelia's hands in mine, steadying her trembling fingers. My voice was calm but fierce. "We will not let him win. He thinks he can use us, but he's underestimated me. He's underestimated us. Her tear-streaked face lifted, doubt flickering in her eyes. Mom, he's dangerous. What can we possibly do against him? I squeezed her hands tighter. We'll find a way. He may be clever, but he's predictable. He wants the house, and that means he'll come here. When he does, we'll be ready. We'll stop being his victims and start being his reckoning. In that moment, I felt Robert's presence. Not as a ghost, but as a reminder of the strength we had always shared as a family. He had taught me to fight for what mattered. And Amelia was all I had left. I would not let Liam take her or our home away from me. The morning after Amelia's return, I woke with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. Gone was the woman who paced her lonely house, waiting for calls that never came. In her place stood someone ready to fight. If Liam thought he could walk back into our lives and strip us of everything, he would discover just how wrong he was. I began with the house. Every lock was changed before noon. I hired a local locksmith, and though his bill added to the mountain of debt already crushing me, I paid without hesitation. Safety came first. I placed no trespassing signs around the property, not because I thought they would stop him, but because I wanted him to know he wasn't welcome. Then I set up cameras. Amelia and I drove to the nearest electronics store, bought 2 small hidden devices, and placed them carefully in the living room and entryway. We disguised one as a houseplant and tucked the other among the books on the shelf. If Liam came, I wanted undeniable proof. Every precaution fueled both my fear and my resolve. At night, lying awake, I felt my heart pounding like a drum. Doubt crept in, you're just an old woman. He's younger, smarter, ruthless. What if you fail? But another voice rose louder inside me. You've survived worse. You buried your husband and kept living. You raised a child alone. You're stronger than he knows. Amelia stayed close. She was fragile, bruised by betrayal, but I saw a flicker of the girl she once was, the one who used to face the world with determination. Together, we gathered our valuables, Robert's watch, my wedding ring, family photos, even the quilt my grandmother had sewn decades ago. We locked them away in a safe deposit box. If Liam wanted to strip us bare, he would find nothing left to take. The waiting was the hardest part. Every sound outside made my pulse quicken. Every car that slowed in front of the house made me clutch my phone, ready to call for help. Fear lived in my chest, but so did something new, defiance. For the first time, I was ready not just to endure, but to fight back. 2 nights later, just as the sun dipped and the street lamps flickered on, a car rolled to a stop outside my house. My breath caught. Amelia, peeking through the curtains, froze. It's him, she whispered. I grabbed my phone, thumb hovering over the emergency dial. But when the door swung open, it wasn't Liam who stepped out. It was David, the groomsman who had warned me, the man who had handed me that address in Bend. For a moment, relief washed over me. Maybe he had come to help. Maybe he had realized Liam was planning something worse. I unlocked the door slowly, heart thundering, and stepped onto the porch. David, I said cautiously, what are you doing here? He smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. Evening, Eleanor. I thought I'd check in. Make sure you're safe. Something in his tone made the hair on my arms rise. It was too smooth, too practiced. He stepped closer, and I noticed the way he glanced around, as if ensuring no one else was watching. Liam couldn't make it, he said casually. He asked me to bring some papers. You'll just need to sign a few things, then all this trouble will be behind you. Cold realization struck me like lightning. The address, the warnings, the sympathy. It had all been a trap. He hadn't been helping me. He had been guiding me, keeping me off balance, luring me deeper into their scheme. I steadied my voice, though rage bubbled in my chest. I'm not signing anything. Whatever game you and Liam are playing, it ends here. David's mask of charm cracked, revealing something sharper underneath. Don't be foolish, Eleanor. You're in no position to fight us. Liam and we've already prepared everything. With one signature, this house belongs to our buyer. Without it, things could get unpleasant. Behind me, Amelia appeared in the doorway, her face pale but her eyes blazing. She gripped a phone in one hand, ready to call for help. David's smirk deepened as he caught sight of her. Ah, the bride returns. How sweet. But this isn't about her anymore. This is about you, Eleanor. You either cooperate, or you lose everything. My fear twisted into fury. They thought they had cornered me, but they had underestimated just how much fight I had left. David stepped inside as though the house already belonged to him. His shoes clicked against the hardwood, each step scratching away at my nerves. Amelia moved closer to me, clutching her phone like a lifeline. From a leather folder tucked under his arm, David pulled out a stack of papers. He spread them across the dining table, his grin cold and calculating. All the documents are ready. Deed transfers, sale contracts, everything we need. All that's missing is your signature, Eleanor. Once you sign, this property is no longer your burden. I forced myself to stay calm, even as my stomach twisted. You forged these. None of it is real. He chuckled. Real enough to convince anyone who matters. Banks, buyers, even the courts if it comes to that. Do you honestly think a widow drowning in debt can win against us? Be smart. Sign, and walk away quietly. Amelia's voice trembled, but her words were sharp. You're criminals. The police will. Do nothing, David interrupted smoothly. You're an adult who married willingly, Amelia. You gave Liam access to your accounts. Your mother handed him her credit cards. To them, it looks like carelessness, not crime. We've been through this before. The law takes months, sometimes years, to catch up. By then, we'll be gone. He leaned forward, eyes locked on me. This is your last chance. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. For a moment, the room was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. My heart pounded, but anger steadied me. I had been silent at the wedding, humiliated into submission. Not this time. I pushed the papers back toward him. I won't sign. This house is my life. My husband built our family here. You'll have to drag me out before I give it up. His jaw tightened, and the mask of politeness slipped away. Stubborn old woman, he hissed. You think you're brave, but you have no idea who you're dealing with. At that moment, heavy footsteps echoed on the porch. Another man's shadow fell across the doorway. Amelia gasped. David smirked. Perfect timing. Meet Mark. He's here to make sure you follow through. Mark filled the doorway like a shadow, tall and broad, his eyes scanning the room with a predator's calm. He shut the door behind him and stepped forward, arms crossed. We don't have all night, he muttered to David. David's confidence surged now that he wasn't alone. He slid the papers back toward me, his voice sharp. Sign, Eleanor. Right now. Or things get ugly. Amelia gripped my arm, her nails digging into my skin. I could feel her fear, but I could also feel her determination. Her other hand, still holding the phone, trembled as she pressed the emergency number, her thumb hovering over the final button. I stood, my knees shaking but my voice steady. I told you I won't sign. This is my home. My husband's memory lives here. If you think you can scare me into giving it up, you're wrong. David slammed his fist on the table, the papers scattering. You're finished, Eleanor, he bellowed. You've ruined everything. Just then, a faint wail pierced the night. Sirens. Growing louder. Closer. David froze. Mark turned toward the window, his jaw tightening. You called them. Before I could answer, Amelia stepped forward, holding her phone high. Her voice shook, but her words cut through the air like a blade. The police are on their way. We recorded everything. You're both done. For the first time, I saw panic flash in David's eyes. He looked at Mark, then back at me, his expression twisting into rage. This isn't over, he spat. Mark grabbed his arm. We need to go. Now. In a blur, they bolted for the door, shoving past each other. Tires screeched outside as their car roared away into the night. The house fell silent again, except for the pounding of my heart and Amelia's ragged breaths. Moments later, red and blue lights bathed the living room walls. Officers stormed in, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something like relief. They listened, at first with skepticism, but when I showed them the hidden camera footage, their faces hardened. We had proof. Proof of the threats, the documents, and the attempted theft of my home. That night, Amelia and I clung to each other, exhausted but unbroken. Liam and his men had escaped, for now, but they no longer had the power to make us silent. We had taken the first step in reclaiming our lives. When the officers arrived that night, their expressions carried politeness but little belief. They listened as I poured out everything. How Liam had manipulated my daughter, how David had turned out to be part of the scheme, how they tried to force me to sign away my home. They glanced at the forged documents scattered on the table, but I could see the doubt in their eyes. To them, maybe I looked like a desperate widow too consumed by fear to tell fact from imagination. One of them even said gently, "Ma'am, if you willingly gave Liam access to your credit cards, and if your daughter married him of her own choice, much of this may be civil, not criminal." The word stung. As if my pain could be filed away as a misunderstanding. As if the threats in my own living room didn't matter. But I wasn't about to let them dismiss me. I led them to the bookshelf and pulled out the small hidden camera. My hands trembled as Amelia opened the footage on her laptop. We all leaned in as the recording played. There was David's voice, low and sharp, demanding my signature. There was Mark standing in the doorway, looming, his tone full of menace. The officers' eyes widened as they watched me refuse, as they heard Amelia's voice calling them criminals, as the sound of sirens filled the background. When the video ended, the room felt different. The officer who had spoken before nodded slowly. "All right. We see enough here to open a full investigation." Relief washed over me, but it was fragile. Liam and his men had vanished into the night, and I knew predators like them didn't stop. Still, for the first time, I had proof no one could twist or deny. In the days that followed, Amelia and I lived on edge. Every knock at the door, every car slowing outside, sent our hearts racing. But the police were finally listening. We filed reports, handed over every document, and prayed that it would be enough. Months dragged on. Bills piled higher. I fought through long phone calls with banks, trying to reclaim what Liam had stolen from me. Each day, I carried both the weight of survival and the responsibility of holding my daughter together. She was fragile still, ashamed of how blind she had been, but I reminded her again and again, "This is not your shame. It's his. You are not weak for trusting. You are human." And then months later, the call came. A detective's voice on the other end of the line told me Liam had been caught in California, along with David and Mark. They had tried the same scam on another older woman. Different names, same method. But this time, they had been tracked, and when arrested, the evidence was undeniable. I nearly collapsed into the chair as I listened. The detective explained that among the items recovered were the very documents stolen from me. My identity was restored. My accounts were cleared. The shadow Liam had cast over my life began to lift. When I told Amelia, she cried, not the broken sobs of humiliation, but tears of relief. For the first time since her wedding day, I saw a light return to her eyes. Our bond grew stronger in those months of waiting. Every night we ate dinner together, sharing stories, clinging to the simple joy of being in each other's company. She apologized over and over for the words she had spoken at the reception, for allowing Liam's control to wedge itself between us. I always gave her the same answer. "You are my daughter. There is nothing to forgive." We survived, and that's all that matters. Through it all, I learned something I wish I had understood sooner. Age does not mean helplessness. Vulnerability does not mean defeat. I had let loneliness convince me I was powerless. But when pressed to the edge, I discovered a strength I didn't know I still had. Yes, Liam took my money. Yes, he tried to strip me of my dignity. But in the end, he failed. He underestimated me. He underestimated the bond between a mother and her child. And that, more than anything, was his downfall. My dear listener, if there is one lesson in my story, let it be this. Resilience is born not in comfort, but in trials. Betrayal may wound us, but it also reveals the fire within us to rise again. Never believe that age, grief, or loss means your fight is over. As long as you have love, as long as you have hope, you still have strength. Before I end, I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced betrayal that left you questioning everything? Share your story in the comments. I will read them, because no one should carry such pain in silence. And if this story touched you, subscribe, like, and share it with others. so they too may find courage to protect themselves.